3, 2. Oh my God.
Yo, what's up?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the program.
The Airtime Podcast is presented by Van Shoes since 1966.
There's nothing fake about it. Have something to believe in and be yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Shout out to Airtime, y'all podcast.
Yes, sir.
All right, welcome back to the show. Today we have Darrah Reid and Chris Rasman with me. We all just attended Baldface's Risk Maturity course presented by Pat Moore. It was a very informative course. We learned a lot about avalanches and first aid, and we wanted to do a quick overview here at Airtime Podcast about, the risks of avalanches going into the mountains, just safety protocol, and just kind of touch on everything that we learned during that week. And I wanted to put a disclaimer at the beginning of the show that we are not guides. We are not professional avalanche and first aid people. So take a first aid course, take an avalanche course with your local community. We're just kind of, we just wanted to touch on everything that we learned, so it kind of just sits and sticks in our brains as we are about to get completely hammered with snow for the next couple months. At least that's what I'm manifesting here.
Oh, I hope so.
Hammered. Maybe we will start with where you were at going into this course, and maybe what your level of expertise were before this course, and we'll kind of just touch on where you guys were at before the course and where you were before the course, and just before where you were before.
Okay, do you want me to start talking now?
Yeah. Okay, Darrah, go.
Where was I at? Okay, so I guess I've spent a couple seasons in the backcountry now, part-time on and off. I bought a sled in 2020. The goal was to go out there more than I have been going out there. But anyways, I took my Avi 1 course. I took my Avi 2 course. Yeah, that's where I was at.
Have you taken a first aid course?
I had not taken a first aid course, so that I was really excited about that part. I had heard a lot of good things about Pat Moore's
risk maturity course
at Baldface. And so I luckily got the invite, and I thought it would be a good idea to go.
Nice. Rasman?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for having us. Thanks for doing this. This is awesome. Like his disclaimer said, we are not snow scientists. We are not avalanche professionals. We are not first aid professionals. But after, 16 years in the backcountry now, I personally have realized how much myself and our crew has gotten away with just on blind luck and ignorance. Ignorance is bliss. And I started going into the backcountry in 2008, I think. That was the year I got my first sled, and have been in the backcountry all winter, every winter since then. I didn't take my first avalanche course until like 2011. And yeah, it was just an AST1. Never practiced with the beacons after that, never polished up on anything. And it just kind of got to a point, more accidents happening in our community, hearing of people's passings, close calls in our crew, where it's just kind of like, what the fuck are we doing? And when I had first caught wind of this risk maturity course that Pat Moore and Jeff Pensiero were doing, I think it was the second year they did it, I hopped on board. And yeah, it was awesome, taking just a deep dive into the snow science, why avalanches happen, how our mindsets work out there, how to manage ego, how to manage expectations, all of that stuff. So I have since done the course 4 times now. And in more recent years, Pat and Jeff and Buff have implemented a first aid portion of the course, which starts off 2 days in a classroom with peak first aid in Nelson. And that's been freaking awesome too, because kind of back on the ignorance is bliss category, we spend all this time now learning how to rescue people from an avalanche or learning how to mitigate avalanches, but we realize none of us were packing any first aid gear. None of us know what to do about a broken femur or how to do CPR on someone or how to set a bone, prevent hypothermia, all that stuff. So yeah, that's where I'm at. And now it's become a lifelong journey of trying to maintain the knowledge and gather more so I can stay safe in the mountains and have a long, fun career out there.
Yeah, a couple huge things I realized while I was there was that my first year, or my first couple of years in the backcountry, I was relying fully on Jess and Ben and their knowledge and their experience, which was so unfair to them and to me and to everyone that was going out with us. Like, I just trusted what they said and didn't have any knowledge myself. So I realized I have a lot to learn, and I need to make sure that I bring my own knowledge to the table when I'm going out. And then the other thing was, like, with injuries out there, I mean, I've definitely seen a lot of injuries and had a lot of injuries in the streets or on the resort, and you just have access to help immediately. You don't really have to know what to do in those situations. You can call and someone's there right away. When you're in the backcountry, like, you only have your crew to rely on, and if no one knows what to do, you're fucked. So that was a huge realization.
Yeah, I think Darrah nailed it. And just to add to something she said, is it's like, I have been guilty of this many times throughout my career, especially even in recent years, where like you change crews and you go out with somebody else that you feel as though has more experience than you. In the course, Buff and Robin Van Gyn were calling it the expert halo. So in that situation, you're giving Jess and Ben that expert halo, not to any fault of their own, that's in your head, and you're like, "Ooh, I have nothing to bring to the table, so I'm just gonna zip it." When sometimes the rookie can have just as much, if not more, and a different set of eyes to bring to the table in terms of safety and concerns.
Totally. One of my biggest takeaways is just a lot of people, I feel like, just take the AST1 or AST2 course. They take their backcountry course, and then they're like, "Oh, perfect. I got like this stamp, which means I'm good."
Mm-hmm.
Similar to like when you buy a beacon probe shovel, you're just like, "I'm venturing into the mountains and I have my tools and I'm good for the day." It's like, there's a whole other side to, well, you have to know how to use all those tools. And yes, you have an avalanche course now, but there's this whole other side that never was really spoken about, which is first aid, which is like, okay, so if there is an accident, because no one's planning on getting injured out there, what do you do? Yeah. And like, what do you do if somebody is bleeding out? Like, do you have a tourniquet? You know, what do you do if someone punctures the hole through their chest? What do you do if someone hits their head and they're showing signs of, you know, a severe concussion and their eyes are bulging out of their head, or like they have a bad back injury, or a bone is sticking out of their leg, which we had with Craig McMorris. He had a compound fracture
and
of
none
the
of
tib
us
fib.
knew what to do. It was in 2016 when we were filming for the Man Boys movie, and this is before any of us had taken a first aid course. And thank God we had Anto Chamberlain there, who's a firefighter. But we were all just like, and like,
shook.
oh, like, yeah, like we knew to run through the motions of how to call for a heli and how to, you know, keep them warm and everything, but we didn't know how to build like a makeshift toboggan. We didn't know how to Anto literally like pulled traction on his tib fib and like splinted it and wrapped it up, and we were all just like, ugh.
Yeah,
So
it made
it's
it feel
gnarly
real.
to talk about, and I think that's the hardest part about this, is it's like people just want to be like, yeah, positivity and like good vibes and like everything's cool and fun, and it's like not fun to talk about the what ifs, but like I think it's really awesome to be prepared for them if they happen. And I like that stigma is getting pushed away, and more people are doing these courses, and more younger riders are getting invited to the Baldface one as well, which is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I will mention that the Baldface Risk Maturity course that Pat Moore and Jeff Pinciero puts on is just for professional snowboarders. It's to help keep, well, the idea behind it, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but Pat Moore realized that there is there's room for our whole community to grow in some knowledge, and he wants to keep our community as safe as possible. So he came up with this course so we could kind of all get together before the beginning of the season, so we can talk about, you know, the mistakes we made the year before, and then get together with the world's best guides in a very special place, Baldface, and kind of talk about the whole just navigating risks while being in the mountain correctly.
Yeah, and it felt like they designed a course that is to navigate risk, but it also is really applicable to what we are doing out there, which is filming and assessing risk in a way that, like, I mean, we obviously have goals out there that are different than maybe people.
A client, crew, and a cat trip.
Yeah, so that was really cool.
Yeah, like Darrah said, it's like that's why they named it, like you hit the nail on the head, but just to add to what both of you said, they named it the risk maturity class and not like the Baldface avalanche class, because it is catered to our industry. And I will put a little disclaimer in for anyone listening. It's not that it's like Jeff and Baldface is not gatekeeping it from riders that aren't in the industry. Like if you want to do this class and you're listening and you feel like you want to break into the industry, or maybe it's just something that's applicable to you, like you can hit up the lodge and see if you can get in. Spots will generally be reserved first for professional snowboarders and their filmers, but there's always, every year, we have some people there that aren't necessarily like in the industry. And I think that's great. But yeah, it's the whole idea is like we are accepting a certain level of risk when we go out there and do what we're doing. And so it's like, where's our risk tolerance, and how can this course give us the tools we need to make correct decisions and stay safe while we're choosing to be in risk, if that makes sense.
No, totally. I think the risk maturity course, without meaning to do so, will inspire other remote, smaller groups of professional snowboarders to maybe put a little pressure on their local first aid crews and backcountry safety kind of community, and build their own risk maturity courses. Like
totally.
I'm imagining, if you ride in somewhere like Tahoe or Salt Lake or wherever, there's guides there that have a ton of knowledge, and there's first aid people. And I'm imagining that if maybe you as a leader or a mentor or somebody who's an older figure, and you want to kind of take that on, and you could be the Pat Moore of that crew and build your own kind of course, which would in turn help your local community. And hopefully this is a little bit of a ripple effect to not only make taking avalanche courses cool, but to add that first aid element, and to what Darrah was saying, a little bit more applicable to riders who are going out, building jumps and riding lines and stuff like that. And it is really nice to go to a course that's relatable for riders who are out there to try to get after a little bit more of freestyle element.
Try and clip up.
We're trying to clip up.
We're trying
to get that clip high, dog.
Oh, it's so good. I haven't had it in months.
I know.
Number 1 priority, stay safe. Number 2 priority, clip up.
Clip high.
Yeah, it's addictive. It is very addictive to get clip high, but you know that when you're going back 5 over the tree, that there's a risk involved, and you don't want to be present Darrah there, where you're like, I don't have anything to bring to the table. I've been in that same position. I think many people have, and it is daunting to go out there and be like, I have nothing to add to the table.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to do CPR. I don't have, and you also don't. You have maybe a couple tools in your bag, but you kind of just like look at them like, hey, thanks for coming with me. Yeah. I don't know how to use you, but like,
yeah. And if you don't practice with them, like, it's like, does anybody remember how to do like algebra? Like algebra? Like, anybody know how to learn math and like anything you're not using, like you lose it. And it's the same. Like I did the first aid course last time I did it was 2 years ago, and I was like, I had the option to opt out of it and just do the Avi course this year, but I was like, no, I need to be there. I need to like re-practice all of these skills, because if you don't use it, you lose it. So kind of like you were talking about way back with the cockiness of people being like, I've taken my AST1, I'm good. It's like, you got to just like, there's one thing that I think this course drove home from all of us is it's like, it's a lifelong journey if you want to be choosing a life in the mountains, and you got to keep on practicing with the shit. Practice with your gear.
Never be enough practice.
Yeah, practice with your crew, get familiar with it, and do it every season, all season.
So, sorry, Darrah, shoot.
I was just going to say also, like, maybe it was a selfish motivation, but like, I don't want a crew to look at me as a liability. Like I want to be invited on crews to go into the backcountry, and I want people, if they're having a conversation about potentially bringing me out, I want them to be like, okay, well, she has the skills and the knowledge, and she's not going to hold us back or
be a liability.
Yeah. Like I want to be confident in my being a part of a crew.
Yeah, no, that's huge. I agree. And I think that crews should look for that too. Like, I will say that when we brought on Miskamin, there was definitely an attraction to him already taking the initiatives to reach out to Baldface when he was a rookie, to be like, hey, I want to come. And it's like Chris was saying earlier, the spots are reserved for professionals, but like if you're nitpicking at the bit, you know what I mean? The squeaky wheel gets the grease. It's like this little kid from wherever is like, hey, I really want to come to this thing. I want to get into the backcountry. I want to start filming. Like, obviously, take that with a grain of salt and don't just start bombarding Baldface with
Yeah.
emails to try to get into this
Patmore, a
course.
bunch
But
of
if you
DMs.
are
Yeah.
on that level,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
really
there's
nice
gotta
for
be a filter still.
yeah. We
but-
got to filter it a bit, obviously, because people like me need to go to that. I need there. It's my job.
Yeah, we gotta gatekeep it for Jody a
Yeah,
little bit.
yeah. It's not gatekeeping, but in your own community, get together with local guides, first aids, and if you think that would bring value to you and your crew, I really think that you maybe who's listening to this right now, you do it. Like you go out there and design a course that can help your local community. But to bring it back to Sean Miskimen, it's like it was really attractive to see him bring what Darrah was touching on there, a lot of qualities to the backcountry that you're looking for, more than just a good snowboarder. Like,
100%.
First and foremost, manners. That's what everybody wants.
Yeah.
And then a good snowboarder. And then, hell yeah,
Dialed.
everybody wants you to be dialed with first aid and backcountry safety. If you're going to be out in the mountains, I don't want to be under the snow and be like, oh no, the closest person to me was Miskimen.
Well, you're taking you and I have been doing this such a long time, and I think kind of like earlier in like the Man Boys timeline, like we definitely had some peers who felt like, not to keep using the term gatekeeping, but who did feel like we were kind of like gatekeeping, and there was multiple reasons why it was like the same crew. Like, first off, we had a lot of riders to one filmer for our whole time doing it, but another part is like you're really taking a leap with the people you go with out there. Like, when you choose to go with a certain group of people in the mountains, you have to rely on all of them for your own safety if something happens, and vice versa. And with Sean, I mean, obviously his boarding and his style was awesome, but part of the reason we were like so down to bring him on was because he did the avalanche courses. He was dialed in the mornings. He was vocalizing, checking all of our transceivers. He wasn't shy to do that. He was like making sure everyone's gear is tight, and we were like, this kid's on it. And it made us instantly feel like comfortable to be with him out there. And that's like, that's a huge part of it.
I will add to that I feel like, in street snowboarding, the first aid part is huge. I feel like everyone in the world, I feel like every country in the world, it should be enrolled in school curriculums to take a first aid course. It's insane that it's not.
Yeah.
It's
like, among other things, it's totally insane.
Your grandfather's having a heart attack, you don't even know what to do.
Yeah.
Like, how does not every house have a pocket mask? It's like, it's ridiculous, and no one knows how to do these simple things. It's like, it's wild that they're not more enrolled in society. But the street riding, I feel like any street boarders who are listening to this, because eventually, some street boarders are going to touch some POW, and so take a first aid course, but as well as a backcountry course. But the injuries that you could still face in the streets are like really applicable to these first aid courses.
For
like
sure.
gnarly.
Like you're wrapping around steel, you know what I mean? It's like internal bleeding. Like if you don't know how to spot those signs and you're, your 10th year filming in the streets and you've dodged some bullets, it's like, I think it's time for people to just take these courses.
The first aid course, like a lot of the signs that they were talking about, I was like, I have seen these signs in the streets and I didn't know that I was seeing them. But the difference is in the streets, like I said, I mean, help is very close. In the backcountry, you only have yourselves.
I mean, didn't you mention to me that were you there with Derek
So, Demo had an internal injury, but it was at Seymour. And we talked about internal injuries and how to assess and figure out what was going on in our first aid course. And now I would have known instantly what was going on with Derek, but at the time,
was he like pale or?
He was cool, clammy, and there's one other thing.
Changing color.
Yeah, cool, clammy, and pale.
Yeah,
and his breathing was affected, and
none of you probably like felt around.
We didn't feel the four quadrants of his stomach, and like now, if that happened to someone, I would immediately feel, and I think I would notice something and be like, okay, this is internal. We got to get help right away.
Okay, maybe we'll shift gears here a little bit. Maybe some strong bullet points, some takeaways, or a specific case study that stood out to each of you. Just something that was like, when you were leaving back in the heli and you're flying back, you're like, whoa, that hit home for me. So I'll let either of you kind of jump on here.
I mean, one thing that they do in the course is they allow like students of the course, if they have had something happen, they allow them to present a case study and explain what went down. I did one 2 years ago on an avalanche that I was in. And then we had it closed 2 years ago by Wes Wiley. I forget his name, but he wrote the book on Craig Kelly's avalanche. He was one of the lead guides there.
Excellent
and it was
book.
amazing. And he like got on a Zoom call with us and broke that whole thing down. And they're super heavy, and like, you know, people are crying through it. And like, it's really hard to not to like tear up because they're really freaking heavy. And this year was no exception. We had Scott homie from Baker, Adam, who was in a pretty catastrophic avalanche in Japan last year where there were multiple fatalities, and he broke that down. And then we had Lando do a really good case study on rider ego and mental health and avalanches. And I mean, they're hard to listen to, but I think what they're good for is we're all there and we're at Baldface and we're learning and everyone's happy, and it's like we're making the training fun and trying to make it lighthearted, and that's awesome. But I think these do a really good job of driving it home into your brain and being like, hey, this is all awesome that we're all having fun and learning together, but like, this is why, so we can like prevent and manage these scenarios. And yeah, they fucking suck to talk about, but they're real, and I think they're an important part of the course.
Oh yeah, they're very impactful. Adam's case study obviously was like
gnarly,
hard to listen to, but important. But it really drove home that like it's serious out there, and like, death is a possibility, and it's really scary. And then I think Lando's talk was impactful and moving, and just all the ego stuff. I mean, Robin's story too about just decision making and assessing risk, and how it's not just yourself that you're making these decisions for, you're also making decisions for the crew, because if you're putting yourself in danger, you're putting everyone in a situation where they may be in danger, or they may have to help you, and if they can't help you, they may be affected by that for the rest of their lives.
Totally. Yeah.
It's just, there's like so much to think about. It's intense.
So maybe in short form, just because I'm imagining there's a couple listeners right now that are itching at the bit right now to hear a little bit. Maybe Chris, if you could touch on the Lando one, and then Darrah, the incident in Japan, and just kind of in short form, like what those incidents were.
I don't think those are ours to tell.
Oh, okay.
I wonder if
not like the whole story, but like because I don't know these stories. I wasn't there for this part of the course. I went to the second bit. So the incident in Japan, I'm imagining it was an avalanche and it was multiple passings.
The gist of the Japan one, and this is all stuff you can find on the internet. It was a slope that they and other people had been riding all day. I think there was a deep instability in the snowpack that Japan had been keeping an eye on, but wasn't really showing much activity. And long story short, they're touring these laps, and a bunch of them are at the bottom in what they thought was a safe spot. And then the next skier triggered a giant size 3 avalanche, and it buried multiple people that were on slope, people that were standing at the bottom, and luckily a bystander crew that was not with them but was touring up to ride the same run after them witnessed the whole thing, and then those were the rescuers. And then do you want to touch on Lando's, like kind of Cole's notes on it?
Well, you kind of just also reminded me that like the similarity between that story and Aaron, the filmer, also had a case study on an incident with right, and that I think the similar thing in both those stories was that the crews had kind of let their guard down a little bit. It was the end of the day for Aaron's. They thought they were in a really safe zone, and then an avalanche was triggered, and there was no fatalities, but there was a serious injury. And anyways, I noticed with both those stories that they had let their guard down a little bit. They thought they were,
that's Darrah nailed it. And that's from my personal experience and my case study that I did 2 years ago. The whole reason I was, I wanted to present that what I was driving home was actually not so much about the conditions, because we did everything right in terms of condition assessment, but what had happened and why I was raked over a cliff from an avalanche was all about rider ego and letting your guard down because you're putting an expert halo on a different crew. I was with a different crew.
And no fault to those crews for letting their guard down, because we've all done it. And like I said, that's what I was doing the first 3 years in the backcountry, was letting my guard down and trusting what other people were saying. So like I don't want to make anyone feel bad by saying that, but that's just something that I took note of. Like, never let your guard down. Like, there's always things to pay attention to, and risk.
Yeah. And then Lando's bullet point was, I like the rider ego thing here. I feel like we should touch on this for a little bit longer, because I think that everybody has a little bit of that, especially when you're a professional. There's that little bit of like, well, I kind of want to like show up today, or ride the bigger line, or like go a little bit bigger on this jump. And yeah, those are often some of the biggest mistakes when well, I don't know, for example, if you jump in with a different crew that you don't know that well, but they've been riding in the backcountry for a long time, you immediately be like, they've been out here for a long time. This is their zone. We're riding in, let's say, Tahoe. And if Chris and I went down to a trip, we go to Tahoe and we meet up with a crew down there, you immediately be like, they ride here all the time. So like, if we're going to do warm-up runs on this face, like clearly it doesn't slide. And I think a lot of times riders do this whole thing where if you see a couple tracks down something, sled tracks, or
we do it on
touring
resort.
Tracks. Yeah, totally. You're immediately like, that doesn't slide
fine.
then.
Somebody
Which
went
is
there.
so far from the truth.
And how many times have huge avalanches or huge incidents happen when somebody has ridden something and you go 5th or 6th?
All the time.
Tail guides have a million stories of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have like many personal stories. Jump landing, sliding, 10 hits in. Again, my case study 2 years ago, part of what gave me the false confidence is I had rode it an hour before really delicately. And then I was like, I'm going to ride it again because you can barely see that track and like open up and do some tricks on this face. But yeah, I mean, Lando's, again, like I don't want to tell his story, but a lot of this is in the public already, and he's done like a magazine interview about it, and
cool.
And he talked about it on the bomb hole, so it's out there. But he basically took us on his whole journey, his whole snowboard career journey, and where the mental trauma wrapped around avalanches and deaths in his community started, how he masked that with alcohol to help him maintain that rider ego that he needed to perform, and how it all came crumbling down. And he like told that story and was, super vulnerable for us to teach us all a lesson. And yeah, Lando's fucking dope. That guy's
so dope.
Yeah.
The aura that Mark puts out is like, it's just contagious. You just want to be around that guy. He's awesome. And
we
it's
need
rad to
people
see
like him in the community.
It's awesome to see him in such a healthy place now, because we do
like
need
to
people
see
like
a
him in the community.
documentary on his story.
Wow.
He has a lot to share.
It's incredible. And then even just like on a lighter note, like all of his stories from filming with Brain Farm, like his like Kurt Morgan and Travis Rice stories are insane. The shit he can tell you that like hasn't been put out there yet. I'm just like, oh my God, you need to write a book.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy.
My biggest takeaway from him talking was just the mental health impact that his experiences had on him and others around him, and how he dealt with those and how he is now dealing with them. And I think that's pretty common in our community, and we're starting to talk about it more, but
yeah,
I think we still have a lot of work to do in that area.
100%.
I like recently, a couple years ago, I think it was actually a Baldface, one of the guides potentially, or somebody from the first aid course, was saying to do, before you venture into the backcountry, or you're going to do anything with a group of people, get into the steel, whatever, just quick in the morning, how's everybody feeling? You know what I mean? Like, because I think venturing into somewhere with risk, not knowing that somebody could be in a really vulnerable position by having their brain space taken up by mental stuff, like really stressed out, relationship stuff, drugs and alcohol, whatever. It's like, if you're a 1 out of 5 and you're not feeling 100%, like maybe it's a good day not to go out. If somebody is also just like a 3 and you kind of know that like they're going through a crazy breakup or something like that, maybe you can be extra attentive on their behalf or something like that. But just knowing where people's like kind of like mental scale is going into the day, I think is like a little tidbit that I took away from one of those courses.
Important.
Just
One
like,
of the guides
hey, how you
was
feeling
talking
this
about
morning, man? Like, how you feeling? You good?
Weeks gave us that scale.
Which I would take that conversation into rail trips too. Like anything, crew dynamic is so important.
Totally.
But yeah, you're right. That was a huge takeaway.
But that's a hard one. And again, going back to why crew dynamic and comfortability with your crew is important, and why some crew, if you're trying to get on a crew and they feel cliquey, like maybe don't judge them right away. Maybe there's some of that going on, because I'm super comfortable around you, and I could tell you without you asking, like, I'm not in a good place today. Like, this just happened in my home life, and you would factor that in to my day, and you would maybe walk me off doing something gnarly that I'm usually capable of doing. You'd be like, you don't need to do this today. But that's a really intimidating thing to do around people you're not super comfortable with, especially if you're trying to show up and be cool and show.
That's true.
So that, like, managing that, like, there's no easy answer, because especially if you're an up and coming snowboarder, you're trying to say yes to all of these opportunities. So there isn't an easy answer to that one, but keeping it in mind and acknowledging that it's there, and that, like, the body and mind are super connected, and how you feel starting a day is going to affect your performance and your decision making.
Yeah, big time.
It could maybe just be part of the prepping for the day. Like, if every crew could implement this from now on, like, let's just have a quick chat. Like how's everyone doing?
Yeah, how's everyone feeling?
I love that.
And for listeners, real quick, because we grazed past the scale, but basically think of that like emotional stability scale on like a 1 through 5, or even like a 0 through 5. Like, let's call 0 being like you're a fucking mess, you're on the brink of suicide, and let's call 5 being like I'm confident, I'm happy, things are going great, and then everything in the middle. And like, most people probably hover at like a 3.5 or a 4 most of their life and think they're doing great, but we have a lot of baggage that we carry through life. And
totally,
I actually think about how much just a quick chat like that would have helped me on. I mean, I relate everything back to rail trips because that's what I have more experience with, but yeah, just a quick check-in would be so crucial, I think, so everyone can have an understanding of how everyone's doing, and then how to go about the day from there.
Where are you on the scale right now? How are you feeling in the booth?
Oh.
Let's do a check-in right now.
Well, I think you guys know from this morning that I'm a little stressed, which is pretty standard for me.
Did we ramp you from a 3 to a 4?
Wait, is 4 good?
Yeah, 4 is in the right direction.
Best. Yeah, I'm at like a 3.5 right now.
Nice.
My baseline is stressed and anxious, so I'm usually a little...
right there with you.
Yeah, you know, Jody.
I think but I think like conversations like this that we're having. I actually had a gentleman bump into me yesterday on the mountain, and he came up to me and he said something really nice about the bomb hole that I did, about like, he's like, hey man, like, I really appreciate you. And I think he worded it like this, like breaking down like snowboard ego. Mm-hmm. And I think like, I was like, thank you or whatever, but bringing it into this conversation, I think it's really applicable that like all of us snowboarders as a group, if we kind of like, if we're willing to be a touch more open with each other, those discussions are potentially super, super helpful, whether you're going into the streets or the backcountry or any aspect of your life. Just knowing where your crew's at is like so big. If somebody's like doesn't know you that super well and you're out with a new photographer, and being able to be a little bit more vulnerable, because it's way more accepted to be like, hey, I know that I don't know you guys that well, and I'm super happy to be here, and I'm going to try my best, but I have had some shit going on in my life, and I just wanted to let you guys know that before we start the day. I would love to know that if somebody else was venturing out with like the Man Boys, and he was like, whoever, Kazu Kokobo calls us and he's coming out for the day, and if he's like, hey man, so hyped to go ride today, feeling stoked, can't wait to do way better tricks than all of you guys. But I am a little stressed out about some shit.
Yeah.
I'm just like trying to imagine that happening with Kazu. We'd all just be like, oh, of course, whatever you need, man, whatever you need, we love you. You're the best.
But like you said, Chris, it would be hard. I imagine it's hard for especially like younger people, and you want to be positive and you want to be stoked and you want to be fun to be around, because that's super important. And it's not to suggest being a Debbie Downer and being like, oh, my girlfriend broke up with me, I don't really, but like just being real. It's okay to be real and be like, yeah, I'm excited to snowboard, I love snowboarding, but this is going on right now and it's also on my mind.
Well articulated.
And like acknowledge the fact that because of whatever scenario you're in, it might be really hard, or you might feel unable to vocalize that. So just being aware of it internally can be helpful too, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, being aware of it internally and knowing whether it's maybe not the right day to go out with the crew, because maybe you will bring them down, or maybe it won't be safe. Mm-hmm. That's another thing. Like, yeah, another big takeaway from our course was listening to Alina and Jeremy talk about turning around sometimes, like saying no to things. Like, and how empowering it is and how important it is to make that decision sometimes. Like, this isn't the right day. It's not the right time. It's not the right conditions, whatever. Jody.
I just wanted to give a quick props to Chris, because I've been working with him a lot over the last 12 or so years. And I will say that in the last like 3 to 4, the amount of times I've seen you read the Abby report, check in with your own like where you're at mentally and pull yourself off of a lot of like really, you could say,
Precarious situation.
yeah, just like beautiful, perfectly lit, you know, everything that you want to ride in a day, it's screaming at you like, ride me. And you're like, and then you're kind of like, you know what, I'm going to put that all aside right now, check in with myself, check in with the time of day, all of these factors, and I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
I look at that, and it's helped me navigate a lot of decisions in the backcountry, and it's inspiring to be around somebody who you look up to, who's willing to be like, it's not the time right now. There is a time and a place. It's such a skill, and
So
it's
hard to
one
do.
that I'm working on. I mean, thank you, but it's
I think you're
definitely
really good
one
at
that
it.
I'm constantly practicing at it, and I will catch myself making little hiccups or mistakes, or maybe when I should have pulled out, but it's a muscle that I have to keep on working at. But yeah, I think that's a really cool one and an important one to have. And just going back to like Jeremy Jones, legend, by the way. First time I met him was fanning out.
So cool.
Yeah,
Jeremy
so
Jones and
sick.
Elena's story talk about just knowing when to pull out. Like it's really fucking cool and awesome and self-aware of you to know when to pull out, even if everything else seems perfect, but just something is not right. And just to kind of do a sidebar, but this is a really great segue into like avalanche pits. Everyone knows, probably most people know what an avalanche pit is. A snow pit, listening, you dig a pit to get an assessment on the snow and how stable it is. Pits aren't for yeses. You don't dig a pit to give you a yes, I should ride this. You should already have all of the yeses before you dig that pit. You dig the pit to try and find a no. So you dig that pit to try and give you a reason not to ride it. And if you already have all the yeses and that pit still gives you no, it doesn't give you a no, then you're like, hell yeah. But if you have some maybes, you dig a pit and you don't get results, you're not like, okay, I should ride that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I think we concluded that a pit would never be
It's just
a
one
hell
piece
yes,
of the pie.
but it would be a hell no.
Yeah, pit's a hell no, it's not a hell yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, the saying no and like turning back from things, that was huge, because we're snowboarders and we're professional athletes and we all have egos, and it's hard to, we want to get those clips, and it's really hard to turn around or to turn down something that is so appealing, but like maybe it's a little risky. Anyways,
Totally.
the saying no, I mean, yeah. Again, I relate things to the streets where like sometimes things won't feel right, but you'll still do them, and it could end up in an injury and I have experienced this so many times where I've had like a gut feeling where I'm like, I shouldn't hit this spot. I'm not really that into it, but then I hit it anyways because the ego comes in, and then next thing you know, I'm fucking hurt, or the clip just isn't even worth it, and I've wasted people's time. So just being able to say no to things is such a skill.
Mm-hmm.
And like just
100%.
know like when it's the time to push yourself and when it's not the time to push yourself. Like if it's the end of the day and the light's kind of glowing and stuff like that, and you want to do like a grab off of a small cornice that, you know, has a landing that fans out and there's no train trap, and the photographer's like, this could be a super sick like backlight indie or whatever, you're like, okay, cool, let's do that. But like maybe your switchback 9 that you're not so strong at 6:30 p.m. maybe it's not the time to try that at the end of the day when you have a 2.5 hour sled ride out, and you're like, okay, like, and it's kind of crazy when you see people really going dummy on like a really big banger late in the day, which we used to do all the time. And I think
will
that's
forever remember your story about Raipow. I think you should tell that one.
And
'Cause
before you touch on the Raipow story, I will jump in quickly because our wonderful friends over at Patreon, our family, our extended family, who have decided to support the show. Thank God for you guys. Seriously, thank you.
How many Patreon members you got now?
I don't know. I think it's like 20.
That's pretty sick.
20 something, maybe a bit more. But like, you know, most people give me like 4. I think there's like 3 to 4 is like the most common. I like to look at it like you're giving me a cup of coffee a month, which I mean, at this point, it pretty much helps the podcast function. So big shout outs to the Patreon members. If you're not one, consider subscribing because it really, really helps out the show. So I can afford to pay Darrah one day because, I mean, she's my intern, which I've given.
I'm the airtime intern.
I haven't given you any projects yet, but, like, you know, one day I'll find something for you to give.
You gave her one at Baldface, but she was too overloaded with information
it's
and
true,
learning
I
to
did.
try and tackle it, which is totally fair.
I had to absorb.
Yeah, you had to absorb.
There was no way I could create content. But
She even asked me, she's like, should I be trying? And I was like, just fucking learn. This is crazy. We don't have any time. We barely could find time to take a shower.
It's true. It was full on. But yeah, Patreon, sign up, subscribe or whatever, because I need to get paid one day.
One day. Okay, so from Spencer Craig, Spenny, shout outs.
We love Spenny.
Nice.
Yeah,
Spencer.
the best human/mechanic in the world. Asks first, before we get into the RyPow one, does anyone carry an inReach in your crew?
Yeah, multiple. I used to think just one in the crew was awesome, but I realized it's way cooler to have several, and that being because the backpack that has the one inReach might not always be closest to you in the event of an accident or emergency, or it might be buried in an avalanche. So inReaches are pretty awesome to have all season. Like if you camp in the summer or are ever out of service, even not in the winter, they're a great device. But yeah, multiple inReaches all the time.
And then he says, Chris and Darrah, what is everyone's thoughts about hitting features late in the day? And he's curious for you to also elaborate on the RyPow incident. So maybe Darrah, you can touch on that first, and then we'll go over to Chris, and then you can elaborate on that, and then maybe touch on the RyPow story.
Okay, well, first, shout out Spenny for getting me out of some very shitty situations in the backcountry where I probably should have assessed the risk and my own snowmobile skill a little better. So thank you, Spenny. And my thoughts on hitting things late in the day. I mean, like I said, your story about RyPow, like I'll never forget that. And it's something that I wouldn't have thought about before hitting something late in the day. I'd just be like, I need the shot. Like we're here. I have to snowboard right now. I want this shot really badly. And now I will probably I will for sure have a hard time where it's like, we got to start packing up. We're not trying hard tricks anymore. We're thinking about leaving. We're making it out before dark. Like I will always remember that.
And just to touch on that, I think like just to make it a little bit more relatable, a lot of these people aren't filming clips. Yeah. They're just powder panic. Can't wait. Like
exactly.
I've been working for the last 12 months and I finally am out here with my friends and the snow is good. And I finally get to rip this glorious power run, sweet half pipe looking natural bowl, and just hammer into this heel side turn that happens to be on a convexity at the end of the day.
Maybe you're just a ripper and you rip multiple times a week, but you aren't a professional snowboarder and you work whatever job it is you work, but you just like to snowboard and you go split and tour or sled. The first thing I'll say is like I think this really just mainly applies to the backcountry because of the lack of resources we have out there, like Darrah was saying. But the main thing I like to think about now, which again, we learned in this course, is it's like when you're going to ride something where there is any risk involved, think of how much daylight you have left. Think about, okay, how far are we from the parking lot, the vehicle? How far is that vehicle from the closest hospital? How long does it take us to get to that parking lot from where we're at right now? How long will it take if a sled breaks down or if there's a serious injury and you have to consider all of those things. So I now, ever since RyPow's injury especially, which I'll touch on in a sec for you, Spencer, I kind of have like, depending on where we are, like a 2.5 hour before sunset cutoff for high level snowboarding in my mind. So it's like, yeah, maybe you could go get that sunset slash on the way out if you're close to the parking lot. But anything for me that's like where there's risk involved, super cold weather and late in the day, I just don't fuck with it anymore.
I think it's just another conversation to have with the crew. Like at a certain time, look around. Okay, where are all the sleds? What are the details of us getting them all out of here? Yeah. What's our skill level? What's the weather doing? And how long is it going to take us to get to the parking lot? Just things like that to think about.
Yeah,
and talk 100%.
About. Ryan Patterson's story, it was January 2020, I think. So a couple months before the big vid shut the world down. But we had this pretty intense Arctic outflow hitting the Pacific Northwest. So that basically means just like super cold air. It was like minus 25, minus 30 in the Alpine for like 3 or 4 days straight. A couple of the guys from our crew were out of town, and one or two of the other guys were just not really into going up in that cold weather. Like, I'm going to sit it out. I forget who's who, doesn't matter. I'd been wanting to snowboard with Ryan Patterson for a while now, and I thought this was a perfect opportunity to go get some clips with him because the crew's empty and I have a filmer. And so we went out to Brandywine, local sled zone here, super lean crew, which is also something we don't rarely do. Me, Ben Webb, the filmer, and Ryan Patterson. And we just went into a subalpine treed zone to build like a pillow popper, basically. Just build like a wedge off a pillow in the trees and just get some like cool, fisheye or straight on shots of us blasting through a tree hallway. Anyways, long story short, I kind of wrapped up the session. I got the trick that I wanted. I was freaking cold and my board wasn't flexing properly. And Ryan was pretty juiced to get a second trick on this feature. And the snow is cold. It's not packing super well. So we're having some issues with the jump takeoff. Like, it was really like your edges really dig into it. Anyways, Ryan hooks his edge on a switch backside something really badly in the soft snow and the compression, and essentially swings full speed on the upper arc of his airtime straight into like an old growth tree. I just see him smack his face and start spinning. It was like the crunch was so fucking gnarly. And it was like, okay, go. So I like started my sled right away, ripped right up to him and checked him out. And he was super messed up. Basically, it was broken jaw, couple teeth missing, blood all over his face, broken elbow, and I think broken wrist too. But obviously in that moment, I'm just like assessing injuries. I'm like, first thing I did was like, Ryan, like, are you okay? Are you okay? Like, can you talk to me? Like, and he was like, oh yeah, it's super messed up. I made sure he could like breathe. He didn't have like any teeth or blood clogging him. And then I just tried to check out any I checked out his spine and his ribs, felt around here to see if he had any like internal bleeding, and everything felt good. And then as I moved to the arms, I realized his right arm, I think. I was like, hey, there's something going on here, but it didn't. I was like, he's got like broken arm or broken something with his wrist, but nothing felt like crazy displaced or gnarly enough to worry about at the time. My worry was just like, Ben, you get up here, our filmer, let's keep him warm and make sure his like breathing stays good. Like, I got to call for help because this is fucked. So one thing I'll add that I might have forgot to add is it was late in the day. This is January, so the days are already really short, and Ryan is now hitting this at like 3:45 p.m., meaning there's like an hour tops left of daylight, and in 2 hours it's pitch black at that time of the year. So first thing we did was get Ben up there. I got like a bunch of gauze out of my first aid pack and basically just had Ryan like chomp on it, so the blood from his teeth and broken jaw was just like not flowing all over the place. And then I just basically like covered him with layers and just was like, Ben, you just stay with him. Like, you just like keep him talking, keep him warm, like cuddle him, hug him, whatever. I'm like, we have a very small crew, and so like I got to go into like extraction mode, and you just stay with him. So luckily I pulled up my inReach, but luckily I realized where we were. We had really good cell service. So I was like, okay, fuck the inReach. This is going to be slower. So how the process works, if you're in the BC backcountry, I can't speak for other places in the world, but essentially if you use an inReach and you push the search and rescue button, that goes to a dispatcher in like Texas or something, and then it connects with our 911 and then like gives them the coordinates, and search and rescue will go out. But they don't have any information on the injury when they do that, so it could be slower, they could prioritize something else, or they just might pack the wrong gear, whatever it may be. If you have a way to communicate with someone at home to give them the details of the injury, whether it be via inReach or via phone, that's way faster. So I call 911, tell them what happens and where we are. Like, we're not on the resort, we're in the backcountry, we need search and rescue. Here are my coordinates. Then they get in touch with search and rescue, and I give them my number. I start, after I get off the phone with them and give them all the info, prepping a LZ, a landing zone for the heli. So I'm like running around, don't have any layers because I've given them all to Ryan. I'm sawing trees down, trying to create like a nice landing zone for the heli. Ryan's still stable. He's doing okay, but he's getting really cold. It's like -30 out there and the sun's going down. I get a call on my phone and I'm so excited. I'm like, okay, heli's going to come. And it's search and rescue letting me know that it's too late in the day for the heli to fly. Do we have the necessary materials or necessary gear to spend the night? And I'm just like, absolutely not. Do we have the necessary gear to spend the night in -30 weather? Anyways, I'd seen Spencer Craig, our Patreon question caller here, earlier in that day. And so I knew he was out there sledding somewhere, was probably either at home at this point or in the parking lot. Called him. He didn't answer. Finally, he calls me back. And I'm like, you need to if you have enough gas, you need to gather whatever resources you have of people in the parking lot right now. And we need help because we only have me and Ben, and Ryan's really hurt. And we need to like walk him up to the sled trail and get him out of here because the heli can't come. So to move this story forward, he was awesome. He rallied a big crew of people. We had basically a fleet of sledders and helpers coming to help us. And we just manhandled Ryan up the slope to the cat track, got him in on Spencer's sled, kind of sandwiched him in there with some snowboards, and got him out to an ambulance waiting in the Brandywine parking lot. So the whole gist of this long, dragged out Rasman story is that really drove home to me to not do that level of snowboarding when you don't have the resources to deal with a scenario like that. Like late in the day, heli might not be able to come, cold weather, your patient's going to get hypothermia way quicker, all that stuff. Just kind of.
I was going to say, as a like new person to the backcountry, my biggest takeaways from that story were like, don't start something big late in the day, especially when it's that cold.
Totally.
Maybe a 3-person crew is not the best, and also have resources. Like, I'm going to go into this season in the backcountry being so much more prepared just as far as supplies than I ever was before, because I don't want to be in a situation where I don't have the things that I need.
One thing that I've really realized over the years is that your closest point to tools and equipment and stuff might be your truck. So having like if you're tunnel on your sled, we're talking kind of specifically to sledding right now, I feel like, but like put the extra gear that you can't put on your tunnel in your truck. At least you have a point of like, okay, we have a good amount of safety gear in one of the trucks.
Yeah, somebody can
and that might be
it.
way faster than the especially when you start sledding in places like that aren't like Whistler. Like you go up to like, you know, Alaska and stuff like that, like you're probably closer than any ambulance that's going to come or any safety or search and rescue crew. So I think like stocking your truck with extra whatever you need is a great idea if you can't put on your tunnel.
Bring extra gear in there. Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. And I know this is like, for listeners, again, this is like an overwhelming amount of unorganized information. But yeah, if you are sledding, remember that you have a gas-powered machine and you have the luxury of taking a lot of safety gear, like extra layers, solid first aid kit, bivvies, all that stuff. Obviously, if you're touring, you're trying to stay light, but maybe sacrifice the 4-pack of Après Lager. Bring one Après Lager and bring more first aid equipment.
Yeah, definitely realize that for like splitting, touring, that whole world is that you don't want to pack like super light. Like I get that you want to be light for your ride down, but like those injuries that you could have out there could be catastrophic if you're touring, because you're not in a sled zone. So most tours go like split to some zone where there are no snowmobilers. So it's like the only other people that can help you are on skis, and it's going to take them forever to get to you. Like sledding, at least you can like rip around from point A to point B. You have gasoline in a machine that you can start a fire with. Yeah. Just like if you have to do crevasse extraction, you have like a tool you can tie to. It's like the snowmobile to me is just like, I don't know, a multifaceted kind of tool than like sledding. If you're going out splitting, you shouldn't be like, I'm going to have less gear now. It's like you still want to have like all of the important stuff. And you definitely want to like have the extra layers. To me is the big one, and maybe we can touch on
hypothermia.
What did you guys learn about like how important is being warm and how important is extra layers, and just keeping if somebody is injured, keeping them warm during an injury?
I'm gonna let Darrah take this one, and I'm gonna start it off by saying, if gunshot wounds in Afghanistan when it's like 40 degrees Celsius will get hypothermia in like 10 minutes, to give you an example of how quickly we lose body heat.
That's what I was going to say. So now I don't know what to say. But who told us that? Somebody,
Probably one of maybe Lindsay from Peak First Aid.
yeah, maybe it was in the first aid course. They talked about how in extremely hot weather, a wound can lead to hypothermia. So when you're in the backcountry and it's extremely cold and you are injured,
Fast.
yeah. So layers and being prepared in that way is crucial.
What's maybe the most important for keeping somebody warm?
Most important what?
This is kind of like
The most important piece, or
the most important piece of the puzzle to keeping somebody warm if they're injured in the backcountry.
get them warm fast.
Oh, get them off the snow.
Oh,
Correct.
get them off the snow.
Wrong, Darrah.
Damn it.
Get them
Cut
off
this
the
part
snow.
out. Yes, I learned this. I needed to bring my notes.
No, I'm kidding. Do you know Brock actually, when we were doing a makeshift sled out of, you can do that. I'll quickly describe it. You can put two snowboards together and then you strap the toe caps together and you can fit most humans lodge them in between and at least you can slide them around.
Mm-hmm.
But what Red had, Brock, it was a small inflatable little mattress that you could blow up with your lips and your own little lungs.
Like a little thermarest.
And it gets them about 2 inches, an inch off the snow, and
I mean, even just like throw them on a backpack if you have nothing else. Like just
off the snow.
get them off the snow.
Get them a few inches off the snow.
Yeah.
'Cause I mean, that's another thing. Like even doing this course 2 years ago, I didn't pack any form of thermarest, but I wrote that on my list.
I
This
have
year I was like,
such a
I'm gonna
long
put
list.
a thermarest in my tunnel bag now because that's like such an easy way to just. Because in
That's a big
Rap House
one.
situation, it's like I put down like a layer on the ground to get his butt off the snow, but like I didn't have much for extra bivvies or extra layers, and so I like gave him my extra layer around his shoulders, and then Ben was just sitting there cuddling him. But like if I had more gear, like I would have been way more comfortable with his situation.
Maybe I'll just do a quick bullet point on first aid supplies that you have, because I'm imagining there's some people that instead of asking you guys, and I feel like it would be hard to go through the whole list, I'll just quickly, spit it out right now. This is the majority of what you would want in a first aid kit: a pocket mask, an OPA. Chris, do you know what an OPA is? NPA?
Yeah, OPAs. We were actually learned this on this course. Maybe if you're trying to save space, maybe not the most necessary thing because you can often get the tongue out of the way with a good jaw thrust. But basically, an OPA is a device to clear the airway if you're doing CPR on an unresponsive person and you can't get air into their mouth because something's clogging their throat or their tongue's falling to the back of their throat. The OPA goes in there and basically creates airway.
Yeah, and then the NPA is just a nasal version of that you can put in too. And for the OPA, you want to make sure that you have your own size with you and then tell your crew where that is so they don't have to guess because there's different sizes. You want specifically a CAT tourniquet. So you want a tourniquet, but you want the CAT branded one. That's the gold standard, you could say, and that's for if somebody is bleeding out. And then you want a SAM splint, a SAM chest seal, 2 triangle band-aids, foil blanket, bivy blanket. These are so you can wrap the individual around a blanket and kind of, in short, you want to make a burrito basically and wrap the person in as many layers as possible and then fold them up in a bivy blanket and some foils and then get them off the snow. Pain meds, Tylenol and Advil, if you mix the two together, 1,000 milligrams of Tylenol and 400 milligrams of Advil, depending on the branded Advil and Tylenol that you have. But yeah, 1,000 milligrams of Tylenol, 400 milligrams of Advil, and at least you kind of get an elevated pain relief when you're out there. It's like, I don't know, everyone kind of typically has Advil or Tylenol, so if you mix the two in your kit, at least you can give somebody, like, man, if you have a broken femur or broken something, you don't want to just be giving somebody Tylenol and be like, you okay? Like, the fact that you could pack Tylenol and Advil and get that dosage right and at least help your friend alleviate some of that pain is huge. I definitely liked to I didn't know that one the year before. That was a new learn for me this year. I like that one
too, for sure. Again, like I will,
we're not medical professionals, and obviously, we're not telling you to just start slamming back pain meds here. Like
this isn't an emergency situation.
Exactly.
This is what we were told.
A fire kit, heat pads, extra layers, extra puffy, rope, sat phone in reach, and a knife are definitely the kind of what you would want to have.
Ski straps are super handy.
Ski straps.
Lots of rope. What were the cordelette?
Yeah, cordelette.
Yeah.
Like Black Diamond makes those cool like climbing cordelettes. Like they're basically just this long circular loop with a really strong
good
material.
for tree extractions, tree well extractions.
I keep that in my little like, you know how backcountry bags have like the waist strap, and then on the waist strap, like 90% of them have like a little pouch. I put that thing there, and it can be used for so many different things. But the reason it lives there on my backpack is they're really good tree well extraction devices too.
Yeah, I mean, like now that we're moving on to that early season, like kind of most resorts are between December and January get like that hammered on, lots of POW, and you're not even going into the backcountry. You're actually riding resort POW. And a big takeaway from me was just like when you're riding inbounds backcountry, just how to kind of navigate that, you know.
Totally.
Have a buddy.
Too bad there's not enough snow in
buddy
Whistler right now for
system.
any tree
Yeah,
wells to
Darrah,
exist.
you want to...
I can't believe how many times a big crew of us has gone to Kybers hooting and hollering.
Yeah.
Just like nobody has a buddy, just have a buddy. Make sure that
You better keep up.
yeah,
Like everyone just
there are tree wells and there are wrong turns and shit can go wrong even on the resort. So just have a buddy, take care of your friends.
Yeah,
Look after each
totally.
other.
The buddy system on a POW day is huge. And then, just one more emphasis on the extra layers because, like you were saying, the bullet shot in a battle in the desert when it's warm can give you hypothermia. Like that needs to like hit home because like if you can get hypothermia in a desert where it's like not even that cold, the backcountry, man, you need those layers. And I've been when I broke my back on Manboy Gap, I just remember like. I think if I was there for another hour, I would have just died from being cold. Like we laid a thin shell jacket on the ground and I was just laying on that. Like you need to be elevated off the ground. Like cut pine tree branches and just whatever you can do to get that person like off the snow.
I have such a long list of things I need to go and get for
purchase.
Yeah, things I need to go buy today if I make it, although I'm behind schedule. Anyways, just the little thermarest I think is going to be part of my pack for sure. And then the bivvies, the blankets, extra puffy that you just don't even plan on touching, but it's for emergency situation. Microclimate would be good.
Let's talk on I like this one. I stole this from Chris. I thought it was really good. The extra shovel and the one shovel that you...
Yeah, I mean, this one is, again, maybe a bit more specific to snowmobile access skiing and snowboarding. But if you have the luxury of sledding and packing a lot of gear, your like avalanche shovel that lives in your backpack, don't even use it. That thing stays dry and ready to go for emergency only. And our whole crew packs a secondary shovel on the back of the snowmobile. And that's the shovel we use for building jumps, digging our snowmobile out from being stuck. That shovel can be anything. It can be an additional backcountry shovel. It can be like a Tuffy Remco, but just I've had instances where we used to build the jumps with our Avi shovels, and then at the end of the day, you go to like build your second jump, and the handle's all stuck and sticky from being wet and frozen. And if that was an emergency and you're trying to dig out your friend and your shovel's only 1 foot long, you'd be pretty bummed on yourself.
Highly recommend the Tuffy in the backcountry for getting unstuck and for building things.
Yeah, save your back.
But also make sure that you, like, I got a new Avi shovel for this course and didn't practice with it at all, and then we get there and we're doing scenarios with avalanches and I'm like fumbling around just trying to get my shovel together. Like, just make sure you know how to use your equipment too. My probe when I got there in the first scenario was broken. Like, just check your equipment a lot.
Yeah, the probe's a big one. Even if you have it if you checked it before you put it away for the summer storage, a lot of times with the ones that have the metal kind of wire running through it, they can get rusted and frayed, and then they can tend to snap. Definitely want to like pull out your your probe, extend the whole thing, click it together, make sure that's good to go at the beginning of the year.
Like, I feel like we make sure our beacons are working, but imagine the devastation of like finding someone and then you try to get the probe and it's just floppy and you're like, oh my God,
totally.
like seconds are being lost right now. Crucial seconds.
Seconds. Yeah.
And
definitely.
for Pacific Northwest riding, like 270 centimeter probe would be like the smallest size you should run. So I know you can buy 240 probes, but like if you're snowboarding in the Whistler backcountry area or Baker, like that's just too small of a probe.
Yeah,
So
if you get a
270
deep
minimum.
burial, you're going to be pretty bummed that you can't. And what I've learned from the course, and obviously this is a ton of information, but I guess what the idea is to overwhelm you, so you take an avalanche course because there is so much information to learn, and you are going to go out with friends and family and loved ones, and you want to be able to at least do your best in an emergency case. But the probe strike, I learned, is just so big. Like we had a deep burial, what are they called? A field test, and we didn't really get a probe strike, but we decided to dig anyway. Or I wasn't on the probe, but they thought they got a probe strike, and we dug all the way down in a deep burial, 3 meters deep, and it wasn't we didn't hit. Like, I think like taking that extra added second to be like, this is what I would feel like to be a probe strike, at least like your best idea of it. And I think like when the individual he was like, I didn't really think I got it. And then we just started digging. Like, you don't want to panic and be like, I think this is it. This is good enough. It's like, you want to get your lowest reading, your absolute lowest reading. And then be like, I am with 95% certainty think that this is a probe strike. Because once you start digging deep,
there's techniques you can implement for deep burials or for what you were just talking about to make it go more smoothly and eliminate some of those what ifs as you start digging. But yeah, again, this is just all the more reason to like do these courses yourselves and practice. And one thing that just popped in my head that I do want to add for listeners, because this is a lot of information and we're bouncing all over the place, but I think it's important to like take the aura off of pro snowboarders from the public, that we just like have it all figured out and we just go out there and just like stack clips and are just like, yeah, we're sick. Like, this podcast is awesome that you're doing this, because we're just kind of like trying to articulate to your listeners that like we're trying our best to do the work ourselves so we can like be out there. It's not just like, we don't just like go. We're
trying our best to set
learn.
ourselves up for
I'm a
success.
student.
We are making a lot of mistakes, and we are
totally.
I am flailing a lot, but all we can do is learn and grow and practice a lot.
Totally. So for beacons, one thing I really liked was just that you want to update yours every 5 years, and you don't want to have the 2 antenna beacon. You want to make sure that you have at least a 3.
Yeah.
And
2 antennas are dead. Get rid of them.
Totally.
Jeeves.
And know how to use your
Andrew
crew's
Jeeves.
beacon.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, if you're going out to buy a beacon and you're a crew, just buy the same beacon for everybody. You want to know how to turn on and off everybody's beacon in your crew, so that if you were to find somebody who maybe, a head injury or something like that, you can kind of slip their beacon over to search or send, depending on what you have to do. If you don't know how to use someone else's beacon on your crew, you don't want to be wasting seconds when you're switching people on and off.
Yeah, and that isn't like it's not like a set in stone thing. Like your crew doesn't need to go out and sell their beacons so they can buy the same one that you have. But yeah, just make sure no one is older than 4 or 5 years. And also remember that there has been transceiver tests, where they've noticed that like the same brand can like integrate with each other a little better than.
Totally. That's kind of what I was getting at. I don't want to put the added pressure on everyone. Like, 'cause this just sounds
like,
to somebody right now, they're like, so you want me to go out and spend $40,000 today?
And like our crew, our crew, we all have different transceivers, and that's okay. But like learning how they integrate with each other is important. And so yeah, just practice with your different transceivers. Like, so they kind of all have their strengths and weaknesses, and just understanding how to use yours the most efficiently is the best thing you can do.
Totally. I mean, like we were saying, we're not professionals, so take that with a grain of salt. But like, each one of those beacons works a little bit differently, and that's why you want to take an avalanche course at the beginning of the year, because you're going to feel like an idiot if you're like, I bought a new beacon and I knew how to use my last year's beacon, but not this one.
Yeah.
It's like, nah, that's like, if you don't know how to use your mark function on your beacon and know exactly where that mark function is and what it does, and like how you can tell if there's 3 people buried or if there's more than 3, and you don't know how to use that, like, you need to know how to use that.
That was like the biggest thing that I was freaking out about. Like, I got to practice that multiple burial scenario and the marking function, and just making sure that I'm so confident in how my beacon works and how to use that function. I'm going to be doing more practice.
All right. Maybe we can switch gears here a little bit. Apps that you guys like to use in the backcountry. I feel like that's a huge one. Apps meaning like just devices that you use to check weather, etc. And this is one of the hugest tools you can use to, just limit your risks?
For weather, I kind of like to triangulate from like a bunch of different like modules. I start with snow forecast just to kind of get an optimistic outlook on everything, and then
Snow forecasts are assholes. They're always like, it's gonna snow fucking 8 feet, and you're like, no way, let's drive there, and it doesn't snow.
Totally. But I like Windy. Windy is a great app. And then I use an app called Clear Dark Sky, which is essentially a star observation website, and that can kind of really help you. Have you heard of that one?
I'm just gonna add that.
That can really help you get a rough idea of the clarity in the sky, the blue sky that you're going to see, and what part of the day it's going to be there for. It's obviously not foolproof, but it's nice.
Which one was that one again? Because I think that I really like that one, and I want our listeners to maybe
cleardarksky.com, and then they have a pretty simple app for your phone, but it works. And then I like to use Gaia for GPS tracking, and you can just like start it at the beginning of the day, and it runs in the background and kind of tracks your routes, and then those routes can be saved on your phone permanently, and then you can drop them into like Google Earth or like CalTopo or something on your desktop and kind of like look at where you've gone, mark routes, mark new routes. Yeah. And then avalanche.ca if you're in Canada.
I was just going to say Avalanche Canada.
Avalanche
would
Canada would be the first thing I check every morning while I'm still in bed before I even start my day. I just like wake up by like reading the detailed reports. I think we're so fortunate in Canada where we have like an incredible bundle of resources from super skilled guides and heli operations and CAD operations, and they're all compiling information together daily in the winter to give us this. So use that. Avalanche Canada is amazing.
Use that, but don't abuse it. Do your own research.
What did Robin say? Lean into it, not on it.
Yes.
Lean into your guides, not on your guides. I love that quote.
Yeah, I just like that it's like one of the many tools of the pie, of the greater pie.
Yeah.
Like you definitely want to use like, you know, I've heard John Buffrey, absolute legend, say this before. If you see avalanches, there's going to be avalanches.
Yeah,
so I think a lot of people overlook that. They go to a zone and then they see that something had slid just before they got there, and it looked like it just like that right there is so much intel. You don't got to dig a pit. You don't got to wonder. It's like there's going to be things that are sliding that day if you just come to a zone and there was an avalanche within the last 24 hours.
Totally.
Obviously, you need to look at that maybe and see like, has that been here for 2 days or is that like new? And that's a skill in itself. So
so much information to think about.
Overwhelming
amount of information.
If this
So many
podcast
pointers.
feels overwhelming, imagine,
Okay, we're going to go Aaron Leyland on him right
pointers.
now. Just because I know Leyland loves this one more than anybody. Comms, radios.
Yeah.
How important? What are you guys running?
Aaron
Let's touch on
Leyland
this.
taught me, well, maybe I shouldn't quote him because maybe this is not, but he was like, I would argue that maybe a radio is more important than any other piece of equipment in the backcountry.
Minus your 3 essential Avi.
I said this with our
but yeah.
group. I said, I believe our guide's name was Joel, if I'm correct.
Yeah. Joel from Baldface.
Yeah, and he was up there, and obviously it's like the triangle, beacon, probe, shovel. And I was like, and I just like super like kind of like bluntly was like, nope. I'm like, that's done. It's beacon, probe, shovel, radio.
Yeah.
Like, I think a radio is the same.
Yeah.
Like you need to have comms with people. If somebody's on the ridge, you need to be able to talk to them if there was an avalanche, not be like, huh, can you?
Yeah, yelling. Yeah,
there was an avalanche.
Comms is
like,
huge. Comms is huge, and like, I mean, whatever. There are different brands, and like Leyland is like a radio guy, so he always would give us the gears for running like simpler trucker mic radios. But just have radios, make sure they're charged, make sure they integrate with each other, and you guys are all on the same channel at the start of the day. Can even be helpful if you run into another crew in the backcountry, whether you're touring and they're on their way out or you're sledding. Get their channel, because just find out what channel they're on. It's like, oh, cool, we're on 420. Oh, cool, we're on 69. Easy. They're on, whatever. We can talk to them if something happens, and you just kind of take a mental log of that. But again, for so many obvious reasons of why comms is important, not even just avalanches. Like you fall in a tree well or you roll your sled on yourself, and having that trucker mic on your backpack so you can really quickly be like, help, I'm stuck under my sled. My avalanche, I wasn't buried, thankfully, but I was literally like wedged into the snow with my head kinked this way because my airbag was keeping my head out of the snow. But my crew couldn't see that. So they're probably panicking in that moment. And I like pulled my snow plug out myself and radioed them. And I'm like, I'm all good. Take your time. I'm fine.
Yeah.
Like
that the trucker mic. I mean, I run BCA head to toe, the airbag, the trucker mic, and everything. And everybody that's on our crew for the most part is running Bo as a BCA.
The BCA radios
BCA
are great.
trucker mic is
affordable entry level trucker mic. Those are awesome
perfect.
radios.
I
And
highly recommend
what you just said about if you run into a crew in the parking lot, I mean, just for safety,
get their channel.
Get their channel. That makes so much sense. It's so easy if anything happens and you need to recruit more help.
That's almost overlooked. I'm realizing
100%.
that I've actually overlooked that, and I know that when we do pass a crew, we often say like, what channel? But then I'm also like, oh,
Forget.
cool. Like, where's the step down I want to hit? I need to be like, when we ask somebody it's similar to asking somebody what their name is. Like, fucking remember that shit.
Write it down if you have to.
And like that's huge. As soon as you're over a couple ridges, you're like, what was their channel again?
Yeah.
I'm lost and I'm in a crevasse.
Like, and the way those radios work, it's actually pretty interesting. Like, if you have like clear sky space between the two of them, like they can be working so far, or you can be really close but have a ridge in between you, and they won't work. So I don't know. Don't like rely on them, but like super helpful asset. And with your crew for sure, make sure your comms are dialed.
Can we pause for a second?
Yeah.
Did you guys pay for parking?
AirtimePodcast.com.
Yeah.
easy to find.
Make sure you subscribe, hit the bell. All right. So before we move on,
You never know what it's like.
I would like to shout out our sponsor for this episode, Baldface.
Sick.
You got
Yeah.
the Baldface sponsor?
I got the Baldface sponsor.
Wow.
I don't know how long. I don't know what the deal is.
We talking airtime Baldface trip?
I don't know. I hope
You and the
so.
intern and our friend Chris?
I don't really know,
Maybe
but
we'll bring Sean. Even Sean gets to go to Baldface.
Even Sean gets a cover.
But I will say that I've always loved Baldface. I've always had a connection with Jeff because I think that our passion for snowboarding really aligns. And whenever I go up there, and now that I've been getting older, it's been like hitting a little different. And having had the contrast of the last time that we just went to Baldface, I had a funeral just beforehand, and then funeral one day, flew up there the next day. I'm at Baldface, and I was in a fortunate position where I got an amazing gift from all my friends at the top, and it was really special. And then going up to Craig's Cross, and it's just like, that place is such a magical place for snowboarders. I mean, whether or not you're like somebody who's followed the whole snowboard spectrum over the last 20, 30 years, and you want to go up there to go and walk around and see all the nostalgic boards and hang out at this lodge where Craig Kelly one day was posted up on a ridge and had a pipe dream to build a lodge up there with his friend Jeff and Buff, and then the fact that it all came to reality. Or if you're just somebody new who just started snowboarding and you want to like learn about the history and go to this place where it has like this magical presence.
I think magical is the right word for it. Like just the energy there is.
Energy's like terrain
insane.
aside. The terrain is so much fun. Like such good vibes riding powder at Baldface. But terrain aside, the magical energy. To put it simply, my first time at Baldface, as soon as I walked into that place, within 5 minutes, I was just more proud to be a part of the snowboard community. It made me proud to be a snowboarder because that place exists.
And yeah, being in that lodge with all of those people and the connections and conversations is really special.
Yeah.
And it would be the same with any crew of snowboarders in that setting, I think.
Totally.
I'm super honored for them to support the show. So, I mean, thanks to Jeff and fellow friends up there that allow us to go up there and teach us, from the guides to Pat Moore. Like, it's just such a magical place, and the fact that we get to go up there at the beginning of the year with like our whole community, it's like, I don't know how to put it into words, but it just makes me what Chris was saying, so proud to be a snowboarder. But it glues our community to be like way stronger, because you're hanging out with, like, I was up there with Brown Cinema, Beyond Metals, the Burton crew. You guys were up there with a jack of all trades pros, and it's like, it really like makes us feel like oh, we're all just a bunch of boarders, and you're on top of this beautiful lodge that brings us all together.
Great
and you're
community building.
Great community building.
Just don't show up and fucking put Journey on, or Jeff will kick you out of the lodge faster than you can say Baldface.
It's true. His number one trigger is Journey. Like if you were like, don't stop.
He's gonna. You're done. Baldface is not a sponsor anymore.
I was joking and I said that. I mean, I might get fucking kicked off the team right now for just
you're done,
touching on that. But like, whatever you do, don't go to Baldface and play Journey. That's a big trigger, and just shut up and enjoy the soup. It's an amazing place.
He has good reason too. The people from Journey aren't the raddest.
Oh, okay,
they're
gotcha.
assholes.
Okay,
but we'll move past that.
But you can have a really nice musical rendition of "Zombie" by the Cranberries.
Yeah, that was
with
awesome.
Everyone chiming in
right
with
any
any instrument.
Wow.
Yeah, that you can do at Baldface.
Yeah, Baldface, magical place. I highly recommend. Moving on here, what are some red flags one might see in a forecast that would be like, fuck, that's a red flag. Maybe I shouldn't go out tomorrow.
I mean, first things first, if the Abbey report says extreme or red or considerable, those are all pretty red flags. But the main thing is change. Snowpack doesn't like
Correct
change.
answer. Chris Rasman.
Temperature, wind, sunshine, super cold to warm, whatever, all that. Snowpack doesn't like crazy change.
Yeah, we had some amazing guides, and they really pushed that. Our group, because I was in group 2, you guys were in group 1, really put that into our brains. Like,
we're not comparing like A team or B team here.
It's just like, yeah, totally, I'm part of the B team here. I know, but like whatever team I was part of, I loved that one. Just like dramatic weather change is not good for snowpack. Whether it's super cold, super hot, lots of precip, anything that's drastic is when you need to kind of really engage. What snow really likes is consistency. You know, slowly just cold snow amount, a slow buildup of precip, nothing drastic.
However, long, super cold weather consistencies can be bad for the snowpack too.
Yeah.
So it's an intricate thing, but yeah, I mean, the most obvious thing is like crazy changes usually means instability.
I mean, that would be like a long extended period of super cold. You're kind of like everybody's scratching their head. So like, okay, that can't be good. And it's not. You get a long period of drought and then it snows a bunch. That's not good. That's when you see all that crazy shit on top of the snow. What's called?
Surface whore.
Darrah!
Darrah with the surface whore. Yeah. Picture like stunning, beautiful crystal formations of snowflakes that look like gorgeous little razor blades on the top of the snow.
And it's not the same as facets.
It's not the same as facets.
All right, moving on to one of the last parts of the show. We got a little trivia here. Yeah, we'll see how you guys do. There's a couple points. I don't know if this was a good idea, a bad idea. Maybe airtime won't do it again. But here we are, and Chris, you're up first. For glacier travel, you should have a static or dynamic rope.
You should have a dynamic rope for glacier travel.
Correct.
Yeah.
Darrah, snow science. Are rounded edges on crystals strong or weak?
Oh my god. Are rounded edges. Okay, well, rounded edges bond, right? So I would say strong.
Correct. Nailed it. Okay, Chris.
I'm so nervous.
A small loose snow avalanche is often referred to as what?
A small, loose snow avalanche? Slough.
Correct. Darrah, how many avalanche sizes are there?
5.
Correct. I like the way I'm saying correct right now. Somebody's probably like, shut up.
This is so stressful.
Chris.
This feels really serious.
Especially doing it at the end where he just talked for like an hour about, oh yeah, this, and this.
Yeah, okay, Chris. Which size can destroy a train and several buildings of avalanche?
I'm going to say 4.
Correct.
5 is a village.
Oh, yeah.
Takes
there you
a
go,
village.
Darrah. Nice job. All right, Darrah. What is hang fire?
You
got it.
Okay. The avalanche happens. It's occurred. Hang fire is what could happen after.
Yes, it's snow above the avalanche crown that could still have a possibility of being a hazard if you're doing some sort of extraction.
Which you need to take into consideration.
Which is why before you do anything in an avalanche situation, you look around and make sure it's safe to go in and rescue.
Very.
Bingo.
Oh yeah, we're killing it here. Okay, Chris, you've dug a pit, a column test. 10 from the blank, 10 from the blank, 10 from the blank.
You do 10 smacks from the wrist on your shovel, then you do 10 from the elbow, then you do 10 from the shoulder or arm, and those are.
Rasman, you guys are doing good. Shit. All right, Darrah.
I knew that one.
A column test is blank centimeters by blank centimeters.
Okay. Let me think about this. Okay, so the panel test is 60 by 30. Wait, is the column test 90 by 30? 90 by 30.
That's an extended column
That's an
test.
extended column.
extended
Okay, so
column
the
test.
actual column would be 30 by 30?
Correct. You guys are amazing.
I don't even have my notes.
That was good. I did not. I thought that was the one you were going to get wrong. Chris, an extended column test is to collect what data?
We went over this.
We did. Extended column test is to collect propagation data. So it's to see if those impacts you're doing from the wrist, elbow, or shoulder, which you're supposed to attribute to a rider on slope, is going to propagate in the snowpack and trigger a remote avalanche.
Totally. And what's a remote avalanche? That's just...
It's a avalanche triggering to another place from where you're standing. It's remotely triggering somewhere else, not just where you're standing.
Which is wild. When you see one of those, like last year, we were briefly chatting off air here, but Belleville happened to put a small avalanche off last year when we were out, and it propagated into the next bowl over.
Yeah.
And we only knew that when we went down to have like lunch on the lake, and we looked over, and it was like the small avalanche that we saw had propagated all the way to the other bowl and created like a massive avalanche.
I'll send you photos, and if you have time to edit today. Last year, me and Ejac and Leyland remote triggered a huge one behind Hollywood Cliffs, and it was crazy because on the topic of tracks not mattering, we had tracked up this face, we had sled tracks down it for the shuttle, and then end of day, just something had changed, temperature, whatever, something had changed in the snowpack, and a sled going down this shuttle remote triggered like a 3-foot deep
That's
fracture.
fucking scary.
I'll send you the photos. It was nuts.
So maybe let's
Well,
cut this out of the podcast, but because
you're
it might be
giving
a
him a
dumb
lot of
question,
work.
but I'm going to ask a question. But so you can trigger an avalanche on a different, like from really far away, like as a crew, you could trigger an avalanche that would potentially affect a crew on a completely different face. Like,
yeah,
I mean,
potentially.
Obviously,
that's not a stupid question.
It's not a stupid question
That's
at all.
scary.
It's not. Obviously, it's like you're not gonna like trigger. You're not gonna be in Brandywine and trigger someone 3 bowls away in Seagram's. But yeah, you could think they're far enough away, but you could remote trigger something for sure.
Another question, and this is just because we talked about this and I want to make sure I understand it, but the column test and the extended column test can be the same column. You do the column test first and then you do the propagation test, right? It's the same.
I'm kind of
You mean the
confused with the
ECT
question.
and
Yeah.
this? I
Remember how we
sure...
did 2 pits, but we could have done 1? And
yeah, but you can have it in the same pit, but you want that isolated column test, the one that's 30 by 30. You don't want to like do the ECT first and then cut it out because that's gonna interrupt.
Right.
That's gonna aggravate.
You
it.
don't want
So
to interrupt. You
can
almost
do
want
it in
you
the
want to leave
same
your
pit,
saw
but
blade
you-
too in the back when you're cutting the column,
Right.
or your rope when you're doing the extended column in the back. You don't want to pull it out.
And if none of this makes any sense, we highly recommend taking
Yeah, we're
some
just take
training.
a course.
Yeah, totally. If this isn't hitting at all and you ride the backcountry
Disclaimer.
all the time,
We
it's a
are
red
not
flag.
professionals. We are constant students of the game.
And
we
I
just
need way more
learn.
training.
Yeah, we all do.
We all do.
You got
All
more
right,
questions?
Oh, sorry. We got another trivia continued.
Nice.
Darrah, when you see an avalanche, what's the first thing you should do?
Avalanche.
Correct.
Yell avalanche.
Yell it.
Yell avalanche. And then what do you want to do? Just rough.
You want me to go through the whole?
Nope, let's not do it.
Okay.
Okay, let's just keep it there. We don't want to give too much information here because we are students, and I feel like we don't want to make people who are listening to this feel like they're getting educated.
This
it's
is
more
not
to
for
inspire.
educational purposes.
Oh, great disclaimer.
This is just our takeaways and I don't know, maybe an
So-
interesting listen.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And if anything, will make you want to learn yourself from professionals.
Yeah, totally. I hope the street people kind of get a little takeaway for the first aid course, because there's like, if you're the oldest, kind of the OG street boarder on the crew, and none of you guys know, and you go to some small remote town and you hit a crazy kink and something bad happens to your homie and none of you guys know how to help them.
If you don't know how to detect a head injury and you're on a street trip, like there's a skill that you want to have.
Okay, let's go on to head injuries because I actually wrote a
Trivia
quick note
done.
here.
Yes,
No, we'll
trivia
go
done.
back to trivia. I'm not going to forget. I don't forget where I am. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I get
He's got
lost.
the clipboard.
But I got my clipboard here. Okay.
Airtime clipboard.
Okay, so what are name 3 symptoms of a head injury?
Looping.
Oh, yeah.
Pupils.
Yeah, pupils, window into the brain, they say.
I would say there could be emotional signs.
Totally. Yeah. I have loss of consciousness, seizure, headache, dizzy, sensitive to light, vomiting, forgetfulness, repeating oneself, seeing stars, ringing ears, loss of smell, eyes bulging that means you got a
That
SOS.
one's
That's bad.
That means
Yeah,
the
that one's
brain is
super
pushing the
serious.
eyes out of the...
And pupils. So just because we hit on that, I was actually not going to do that one. I was like, because Darrah's in such a rush right now. So I was like, fine. We'll skip head injury.
Darrah's been so hard to get a hold of and pin down ever since she got a pro model. She's she's out of our league
Yes, I've
now.
had a pro model for 5 years.
well,
Yeah, for 5 years. It's been tough to track you down.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
All right, Chris. When probing, you should always be perpendicular to the slope. True or false?
Perpendicular means below and facing it. Is that
Perpendicular to the slope.
Is this... Okay, wait. This is the slope is
Yeah.
perpendicular straight up and down, or is it slanted?
It's slanted. It's perpendicular.
Okay, well,
to the
I think
slope.
it depends on...
It kind of is situational, but I'm gonna say true.
It is true.
Yeah.
Correct. Darrah, true or false? Heated gloves and socks and jackets can interfere with your beacon.
True.
Correct. And as well as the iPhone. I that was an interesting one to me
As
because I was
well
like
as
that.
a bunch of other little things that I
Yeah.
never would have
GPS
thought about.
watches, iPhone in airplane mode still interferes, slightly less so, but what actually interferes just as much as the cell phone signal is just the LCD screen of the iPhone. So keep that shit at least how many centimeters away from your transceiver?
Oh, fuck.
I don't know if I know either. I'm gonna throw out 25 centimeters.
I was going to guess around 20 to 30. But okay, I don't know the specific number, but I know that Chris Rasman keeps his iPhone in his handlebar bag.
Yeah, me too. Handlebar
So-
bag.
Handlebar bag on my snowmobile.
Yeah, totally.
But I think it's 20 centimeters. I think what the guide said was
Oh, yeah.
roughly 1 shaka from away from your transceiver.
like a shaka, like surfer
Shaka
bra.
is in
Okay.
theory,
Like a
is
hang
in theory
loose.
enough.
Hang loose, if you will.
Okay, hang
Yeah, so
loose.
roughly-
Extended pinky at 45, extended thumb at 45. Okay. And another shout outs to another sponsor because the podcast is so fortunate. The Scandinavian Spa. We got 2 bath passes.
Wow.
Holy
One for
shit.
both of you so that if you're
That
stressed
is
out and you're going sledding the next day,
unreal.
you can go out to the Scandinave Spa the day before so you're not stressed out so you can have your head
I'm
fully
probably
in the
gonna need it
game.
more the day after, but I'm hyped.
Yeah, that's
Thanks, Jody.
awesome.
Have you been before?
Thanks Airtime in
Once.
Scandinav. Hell yeah, I've been. This place is the best. Trying to get sponsored by them for
Chris
years.
is like, hell yeah. I'm like, one time. I've really treated myself.
Well, I mean, it's a lovely treat.
Thank you.
I in fact have had a pro model for 7 years. So I've been a few times.
right.
All right. Kind of wrapping up here. First, thanks for coming on. That was great. Definitely, again, take an Avi course, but maybe Chris, I'll ask you one question, and then Darrah, we can wrap this up. Chris, how has seeing avalanches, witnessing injuries, and this course all changed your approach moving into the mountains?
It's taught me that snowboarding is amazing, but it's not everything. And how did Adam at the course put it? He's like, snowboarding is 100% worth living for, but it's not worth dying for. And it's just changed my perspective and my priorities, and made me want to be prepared and diligent and safe out there.
Beautifully put. Darrah, do you have any specific tips or advice for women looking to explore in the backcountry?
I don't know if the tips or advice are any different for women or men, but get as educated as possible to be as prepared as possible. And then one thing that this course really made me think about was risk assessment, and when I'm going out, I'm going to be doing a lot more looking around and talking about things and asking myself and the people I'm with whether they are worth putting ourselves in danger for, and having the education to understand what that risk is and what the danger I could potentially be putting myself into is. So anyways, my advice for new people is to just learn as much as possible and keep learning.
And just to like, I'll do my best to kind of like categorize this, but your takeaway from this shouldn't be this like apocalyptic, oh, everything's so scary and gnarly. Just your takeaway should be that it's really fucking cool to learn new shit, and it's good for your brain. And if you really love the mountains, like, why not learn about this? It's awesome. It'll help keep you and your crew safe, and it's just good for you to learn more and keep on evolving.
Totally. I think that's a great way to kind of close this, is that yes, obviously this episode specifically is overwhelming to most anyway, but it just should push you. If you've been thinking for the last couple of years, like, man, I should really take an Avi course or a refresher, you should. Man, you should really take a first aid course. It's like, you should. I mean, first aid is just one of those things that it's not just not just applicable to snowboarding. It's just applicable to life.
It's fun to learn, and it's really interesting, and it's important and applicable, and yeah.
I agree. All right. In closing, we have one more Patreon question. I don't know if you guys are going to pick up on this, because I feel like this is for the ultra snowboard nerds, but we'll see if you guys are there. Nice. Brent, Fursixer? Maybe I wrote that kind of sloppily. But Brent, one of the Patreons, says, one of many reasons why Baldface is so rad is because of all the snowboards. It's like a snowboard museum. What was the raddest board you saw there?
I mean, for me, because I'm such a Jamie Lynn nerd, anytime I see the old Jamie Libtex on the wall, like any of the old like Blue Girl Alien ones or the Whale, yeah, those ones are pretty impactful for me. And then there's a really cool one, like Spring Break, that wooden one at the entrance, and that one's kind of newer. I think I saw Corey Smith put that one up in like 2018 or something.
Cool.
But, yeah. It's the one that says no locals, kooks only on it, but you can also read it like no kooks, locals only. It's like open for interpretation.
Darrah, did any boards stand out to you?
Yeah, I don't have a good answer for this, except I do remember on the last day sitting down at breakfast, I think with you guys, and looking up and being like, holy shit, have you guys seen these snowboards? And there was like the wall in the but I was so like overwhelmed with information and learning and just busy, like hyper focused, that I just didn't really pay attention to my surroundings, and also the fact that I was being very well fed by Baldface. Thank you for accommodating my vegan needs. The food was so good. So anyways, yeah, I didn't take enough notice of the vintage boards.
There was an old Craig Kelly Burton Air like in our cabin, which was really dope too. But yeah, I'm not a huge board nerd like some people, but kind of just seeing them all up there is pretty rad. But yeah, Darrah is a very schedule-based person, and the schedule was pretty challenging and hard to follow. So she didn't have time to focus on the snowboards on the wall.
I did not see all the boards. I'm blown away. It's like
so
I was freaking out
the whole week. I was like, this is intense. Like I mean, it was
eating dinner, and you'd be like, guys, like, do you think there's class soon? Like, do I have time to go take a shower? Okay. I just
need 10 minutes. Just 10 minutes. It was intense. It was full on, but so good. So valuable and great.
My answer is the Forum Peter line.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
We also have one straggling Patreon question from Malcolm. Thank you for being a Patreon member. If the Man Boys were to go on Survivor, who is going out first and who wins?
Great question.
Wait,
Malcolm.
Can I answer from a non-Man Boys
we should have
perspective?
Darrah answer this for sure.
Okay, wait. We need to go through a list of the Man Boys.
Better.
We got Chris, Jody, Rusty. Who am I missing? Sean.
Belzil.
Bo. Jody's going out first, 100%. Sorry, Jody. Yeah, Chris, I think that you might
over Sean
take this one.
Yeah, I mean, me or Rusty.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Rusty's
you or
got
Rusty.
quite a will to live and has a pretty unique set of skills. And
Bo
Jody
and
does
Belzil are both way too
too.
nice to do any of the sneaky things involved in, like, there's
they put
alliances
themselves
and stuff in
first.
Survivor. Yeah.
Ooh, alliances.
Right? Survivor has all
Yeah,
that
dude,
stuff
this
going
could be like Lord of the Flies shit. Like, we could be eating each other by the end of the week. This is,
I actually heard a thing that your dog and cat would eat you if you died.
My dog wouldn't eat me. The cat for sure. Cats
I
would
watched it on
100%.
TikTok, man. It's real. Your dog and your cat eat you if you're dead. That's insane.
It is pretty insane. Yeah, we anthropomorphize those creatures. Is that the word? Anthropomorphize those creatures quite a bit.
You mean
But
they
my dog
don't-
wouldn't eat me.
They don't love us as much as we think?
Nah,
I don't know.
dog loves me.
Should we end it on a different note than the dogs and cats?
Yeah, totally. Let's end it on Darrah's gonna go up snowboarding. What are you guys up to? What's the season? What do you both have in store for the year? We can end it on that.
Filming, switching up the style of what our project looks like. Bringing on some new riders again is going to be huge. Filming, maybe some traveling soon because there's not much snow in BC right now.
Darrah, would you like to close us off here?
This is a stressful question right now. I have some decisions to make in the next few days. But yeah, we're talking about a film project this year. Details are still getting figured out, and I just want to do the same. Fuck. How do I answer this, Jody?
I don't know. That's how you answered it. It was great to hear from both of you.
Let me try that again. I'm going to film a hammer video part, POW and rails, but I would like to start to move into more backcountry. And I didn't spend any time on my snowmobile last year, and I want to spend a lot more time on that this year.
And with that said, I would like to get Darrah on our crew a handful of times to kind of put her in an environment where she can put her skills to the test, because I feel like she can hang on a lot of the stuff we hit, and I want to give you that opportunity.
Yeah,
This
I think
is
that
news to me, and
well, you've shown a lot of maturity over the last 24 hours. So
I actually decided on that throughout this recording, so you passed.
me too.
Chris is trying to send me off some cheese wedges, and I don't know if I can
we'll
hang.
put her at the top of Huffman's step
Raz
down.
is like, you
Darrah,
just got to
straight
make sure
from
you're
here.
going as fast as possible. Your jacket should be flapping. It should hurt your
I'm
abs.
trying. I don't want to. You don't know what it's like.
You'll never know what it's like.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on the show. Make sure you take an Avi course, take a first aid course. Look out for your friends, and have a safe season. Enjoy the POW, and just get it. Hopefully you get just barreled in powder all year, or steel, whatever you're into. Take a first aid course.
Yes,
all right.
deal. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Peace.
Nice job, you guys.
That went well, I think.